Lotus, it used to be said, stood for lots of trouble, usually serious. And certainly in the early days of the company, it was a not undeserved reputation. And I speak as the owner of an original Lotus Elite, certainly one of the most beautiful cars ever built, but one that had its fair share of mechanical and electrical disasters just waiting to happen. The trouble stemmed from Colin Chapman's obsession with lightness. Every component of his car was lightened and stressed to just below its breaking point, and that meant few of his cars, including the racers, were engineered for long-term reliability and service. That said, many of the early Lotus models have moved effortlessly into classic status. The first 6s and 7s, the original Elite of course, the Elan in both drophead and coupe form, and to a lesser extent the Europa. As the years went by, build quality got better and the ownership of Lotus itself changed hands after Chapman's death. First General Motors, then Bugatti and now Proton have a hand in controlling the Norfolk factory. And Lotus have developed a reputation for innovative contract engineering for the rest of the motor industry. Their latest creation, the Elise, launched in 1996, is typical of Lotus. Brilliant design and styling, legendary ability on the road, and despite the use of the 1.8 Rover K series engine from the MGF, sparkling performance through lightweight. Available in several stages of tune, from road going to full race, it's a formula that worked with the first Lotus models, and it still works today. It's not cheap. The convertible is $22,450 and the Sport 111 is $33,500. The Mazda MX-5S is just $18,600 and an MGF VVC is under $21,000. Lotus aficionados would argue that neither has the heritage of Lotus, but customers tempted by the reliability of a BMW Z3, a Mercedes SLK or even a Porsche Boxster for the same sort of money as the Elise Sport might take some convincing.
Lotus's gorgeous little Elise first sprang onto the market a couple of years ago, something like that, since which it has exploded with success for the company. They only anticipated building 750 a year. They're already building about 3,000 of these gorgeous little critters every single year. It's a measure of the scale of that success for Lotus that the building I'm standing in front of today is a technical centre. It's enormous, as yet empty, but very soon very full. Lotus are doing very nicely indeed, thank you very much. And so we come to the newly revised Elise. Well, the changes to the exterior are minimal, but it's a kind of minimalistic car. That's what you'd expect, so subtle things. The headlamps are faired in. It's quite a complicated thing to make this. The indicators are now a smoked finish. And if we wander to the back, the anoraks will notice that in future the new Elise has a little black strip here. That's because it's some boring, tedious, probably European legal thing. It's to do with the fact that it has a new rear wheel that's slightly wider and a new specially designed rear tyre. Then at the rear we've got a little wing here, which I'm told does work very well, and that's a good job because there is more power. In the middle here, nestling away, it's got the engine it was always supposed to have, everybody said, the VVC. That means more power, and that power is put to the rear wheels through a new close ratio gearbox, all of which means I'm sick of talking to you and I want to drive it, because that's what it's all about once you've got in. Next time anybody you're talking to who owns one of these things starts bragging about its capabilities, believe them. Believe everything. They might be the biggest pub bore you've ever met, but everything they say is true. It really does corner like nothing else you'll ever drive. It stops. The stopping power is unbelievable. And it really is all about communicative controls. And that sounds, really, but it is. Everything about the car talks to you. The steering is as direct as it could possibly be without being heavy. The brakes are precisely the same. They're non-servo. And the more you apply the pressure, it sounds obvious, the more it'll brake for you. But until you've really felt a proper braking system like this, you don't know what it's like. It's an absolutely astounding car to drive. We've got this new model. We've had a quick look at the changes. Why these changes? What are you trying to do to it?
We're trying to open the market up. We've had a lot of our present customers saying, I'd just like a bit more power. So we've increased the power, we've changed the gear ratios, so they're a more sporty, if you can believe that, a more sporty type gear ratios, which is very, very well suited to the engine characteristics. And we've made subtle other changes throughout the car and made a new model.
Having said that, we've been tootling around the track at some speed with you driving, and I've had a little blast on the roads myself. I mean, we are talking about a pretty serious tool for racing, but you can use it on the roads, and it isn't frightening. You don't sit in this thing and think, it's a monster, it's going to hurt me.
No, we have a little phrase which says fun at 50. And that's no reference to my age. It's just it's a reference to the fact that it can be just fun driving at 50 miles an hour in a queue of traffic. But when you get the chance to explore the vehicle even on the road or preferably on a closed circuit, then the car really does come alive, and you really have this fantastic feeling of you being as one with the car.
Do you feel that this as a car is the truest to Lotus's roots, to what Lotus is about?
Oh, absolutely. I often say to people that if Colin Chapman was alive today, I'm sure he'd love this car.
As a company then, this is going to be a significant factor presumably in the future for Lotus, the fact that you are now producing a car that sells in significant volume by any count.
It sort of puts a stake in the ground of where we at Lotus are and where we will be going, the direction we'll be going in the future.
So what's next?
Wait and see.
For me, the beauty of the Elise, once you've got out, is in the detail. It is a tiny, lightweight sports car, obviously. It's not even that powerful when you look at it on paper, but of course, put in such a lightweight frame, it translates to an awful lot of power and an awful lot of fun. And it is those details around the car that make it just a delight. For instance, in here, and this would just make my life better, this door hinge, if you can see it, is an absolute delight. The amount of engineering and work that goes into making something like that means that every time I've opened the door in my day with this car, I've just smiled and felt happy. And that is just, for me, what the car's about. Happiness. It looks quite happy. It drives. It just makes you smile. I congratulate Lotus on building something that is more Lotus than anything else could possibly be. They really have epitomised everything Lotus in this car.
I think the uniqueness of the design is also reflected in the body shape. Now, this type of shape just isn't seen on other cars. It's because the process in which the body is made, in that it's hand laid, there's several panels all joined together to make each clamshell at each end, the clamshells at each end of the car, is quite unique. It's labour intensive and it's pretty expensive, but you can end up with this sort of voluptuous car with this certain level of intricacy which we have here. So it stands out above everything else. These sort of unique features are what make a product which has greater desirability than anything else because it is unique. Obviously, the use of aluminium isn't the only great new technology in the car. For instance, the front crash structure. This is a composite part that weighs next to nothing, about 7 kilos. It's got the capability to absorb majority of the energy needed in a front-end 30-mile-an-hour crash. It turns to dust, in fact, during that crash. It's got 7 times the efficiency of steel as a crash structure, and that to absorb the same amount of energy in a steel structure, it'd have to weigh 7 times as much. This was a first for a production car, and certainly something that Lotus is exploring into the future.
The developments are definitely worthwhile. Subtle though they may be, they do make a big difference to the little car. And I wish them all the very best. We congratulate them on the fact that they're selling so many of them, outstripping even their expectations, and I'm sure they will do so in the future. At what? Under 30,000, well under 30,000 pounds. What can you buy for more fun?
Yeah, I know it's a ridiculous hat, but when it's as cold as this and you're in the wilds of Norfolk as we are, you need this protective gear. And what do you need it for? Because we're about to drive this, the fabulous Lotus Elise. It's a car that's been on sale for a while now, but it's a car that has an 18-month waiting list currently, sells for about £22,000, and it's been described as the greatest sports car in the world for the money. Is it? Well, we'll be telling you whether that's the case or not, and we'll also be looking at the Elise's new surprise big brother. Well, it might only have Rover's modest K-Series engine, but it all depends what that engine is powering. And what it's powering is a Superlight chassis, a glorious, glorious car that really, for hacking around a country lane on a Sunday afternoon, is there anything better for the money? Absolutely not. Forget about your MGFs, your BMW Z3s. This is the best. And I just love the imagination and daring that they've shown with this dashboard. They've torn up the rule book really, and they've started from scratch. Lovely little touches, sort of minimalist interior. And what this is a lesson to all those big companies out there that you can be daring with interiors, you can do things differently. Renault did it with the Spider, and Lotus have done it also with the Elise. The difference is, this is the best dashboard of its type on any car I've ever seen. Well, this is the bit I hate, handing the car back. We've enjoyed our 12 hours with the Lotus Elise, but it's time for it to go. Was it better than I thought it would be? Absolutely. Forget about your MGFs and your BMW Z3s. This, in driver's terms, is the best 20 grand-ish sports car on the market. I just hope the build quality is as good as the driving experience.
What else can you have fun in for the money? After the break, Mike Rutherford has let loose with a couple of Caterhams. In part one, we worship the Lotus Elise, but there are others which are true driver's machines.
People often ask me what I do for kicks. After all, I race cars at weekends. I like to hone my reactions with toys. As they say, the difference between the men and the boys is the size of their toys.
Well, actually, I'm not flying this helicopter. It's actually Mark Tilbury over there from Model World that's flying this helicopter. I can, but it's a bit too windy today. Every time it's windy, I crash. And it's Mark Tilbury from Model World who I spend all the money with. His vast fortune he has given me back, in a small degree, by buying off me the Caterham I built for my wife. This is a Caterham scholarship car, and my wife competed in 1 year of the Caterham Scholarship Championship with it, me being team manager, team owner and mechanic, and it was great fun. I enjoyed building the car, I enjoyed maintaining the car, I enjoyed repairing the car, but it hasn't actually been damaged very, very much, Mark, honestly it hasn't. But let's see how it goes on the road. I think the difference between this Caterham and my Vauxhall engine car, this has got the pushrod 1600cc engine, and it makes it much more docile for everyday motoring. It's a lot more economical as far as fuel's concerned. It's a cheaper car, but it's still as much fun. You can have a lot of fun knowing that you're actually probably doing near on 40 miles to the gallon. So what you have is a highly developed, very sophisticated suspension system that is only really appreciated when you take the car to the limit and beyond. The car will understeer initially on the way into the corner if you want it to. It can oversteer slightly on the way out of a corner if you want it to. The balance is so fine that a slight lift off mid-corner or accelerate mid-corner can change the whole balance of the car, and really mid-corner you steer the car on the throttle. Well, here we are again, back with Mark.
Mark, you're the proud owner of a very nice Caterham. You've had it for 2 years, ex-Patrick Watt's car. What do you think? Are you happy with it?
It's an absolutely superb car, mechanically sound, very well built, drives superbly. Can't wait to get up in the morning, if the sun's shining, jump in the car, get out, give it a good thrashing.
Well built, I think, is the word there. I introduced you to Caterhams by letting you have a go in the car initially at Brands Hatch, thrashing it round on a track day.
That's right.
What do you think of track days?
Yeah, well, the on-track days are absolutely superb. You can take the car right to the limit on a variety of British tracks such as Brands Hatch, Thruxton, Snetterton, and it really is good, right to the edge in perfect safety, really.
And into the gravel? I know the answer to this one, but into the gravel occasionally,
yeah,
maybe?
You can end up in the gravel when you're pushing the car to the limit, but again, the gravel traps are there as a safety measure, and it's no danger to yourself or to any others on the track, which is great.
I think the point is that Caterham is really a race car for the road. It's a very good road car, but it's a fantastic race car, and really, unless you actually take it on a racetrack, you just don't realise how incredible the car is. I've still got a Caterham. And this is it. Looking a bit tatty at the moment, unfortunately. It's just come back from Paul Ricard doing a 4-hour race there. Other events I did in it last year were Spa. I did a 2-hour race at Spa in the pouring rain. Events my wife did in it, shopping in Tunbridge Wells, shopping at Lakeside. And between these various events, all we do is change the tyres, spring settings, and it turns it from the ultimate race car to the ultimate road car. It's actually quicker round a lot of race circuits than an actual touring car. On the road, it's absolutely unbelievable. As I said earlier, boys and their toys, you just want to get in and have a play.
Great thing about this job is the glamorous locations, you know, places like Modena, Italy, you know, Stuttgart, Germany, Turin, Italy, Tokyo, Japan, Seoul, Korea, Detroit, USA, and downtown Dartford. Well, this is the Caterham Superlight, a car for less than £20,000 with supercar performance. But I think we'll let it speak for itself. Just take a listen to this, will you? Well, that's 180 horsepower of Rover K series engine. And I don't quite know what they do when they put it under the bonnet of this model that was designed way back in 1957, but it certainly sounds special when it's under the hood of this car. We're talking here about a supercar for the price of a Volkswagen Golf. Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. They prefer not to describe it as a supercar at Caterham, but there's no doubt about it. When you're talking about 190 horsepower, a car that does twice the legal speed limit, 140 miles an hour, not that we'd encourage that sort of thing. A car that, I mean, just look at it. There is no windscreen. Really, the only way to drive this car is with a crash helmet on, or at the very least, a good hat and goggles.
The reason for the car is to provide the ultimate driving experience and to strip away all these peripheries which aren't actually absolutely essential to the driving experience. So in the case of the Superlight R, which is perhaps our most focused product, we don't equip the car as standard with a spare wheel and carrier because that costs you 13.5 kilos. We don't equip it with a windscreen because that costs you 6.6 kilos. We don't equip it with weather equipment because that costs you more weight. Take all of this out, no carpets, the standard seats actually have no trim on them whatsoever, And if you take all of that away, you get a purer and purer driving experience. The Superlight R weighs 470 kilos. That's actually half the weight of a Renault Sport Spider. The Superlight R is extremely powerful. I think it's got a better power to weight ratio than any production Ferrari, for instance. The car, although it is minimal, is safer than you might imagine. We have 10 years of extensive motorsport behind us, which gives us a marvellous opportunity to study what happens to the car when it gets involved in an accident. And they do stand up to it very well. We put high-tech materials into both the side and the rear of the car to protect the occupants. And in a frontal impact, because of its space frame construction, you can have a big impact without damaging yourself.
Well, let's take a closer look at the spec of this incredible vehicle. 1.8 litre Rover K series engine, that's the 16-valve DOHC lump that's beneath the bonnet of this vehicle, and 190 horsepower, an incredible 140 miles per hour, 0 to 60, get this, in about 4 seconds. 6-speed gearbox, and get this for an overall weight. The Lotus Elise is 690 kilos. The Caterham Superlight a mere 470. Now, if you're thinking of buying one of these Caterham 7s, particularly this version here, without the windscreen, the Superlight, don't go running away with the idea this is a car you can use day in, day out, that you can commute to the office in. It's not really in that league. I mean, it's not a Rover MGF, it's no BMW Z3. They're far, far more civilised. But that, believe it or not, is the joy of this car. It's not like driving a normal motor car. Drive along with this windscreen arrangement such as it is, and it's like having your head ripped off. I tried to drive this thing for a few miles without a flying jacket, without a crash helmet. Virtually impossible. You don't realise how much dirt and grime and junk is thrown up in your face when you're driving along when you've got a windscreen. So it's very, very much the sort of car that you'd take out on a Sunday, do a few miles every year in it, and happily put it back in your garage.